Welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to really explore the science of performing under immense pressure.
Yeah, and we're doing that by looking at what is basically the ultimate high-stakes moment.
Right, the soccer penalty kick.
Yeah.
And, extracting the lessons that you can actually apply to your everyday challenges.
Because the mechanics of pressure are, well, they're surprisingly universal.
Exactly. So picture this. It's Tuesday at the World Cup. Argentina is playing Egypt.
Yeah.
And it is just a wildly dramatic game.
Oh, an absolute roller coaster.
Right. Argentina pulls off this remarkable comeback. I mean, they score 3 goals in just 14 minutes to basically steal a 3-2 victory.
Which is the kind of performance that totally goes down in sports history.
It does. But, if you look closely, the most memorable moment of that entire match wasn't actually the victory.
No, it was a pretty rough moment of failure.
Yeah. A failure by literally the greatest player on earth. Lionel Messi. I mean, arguably the greatest player to ever touch a soccer ball. Right? He steps up for a penalty kick that would have tied the game at 1-1. The weight of an entire nation is completely on his shoulders. He kicks, and the ball is saved.
Yeah, goalie Mostafoi Shobeirom just completely blocks it.
The Egyptian fans go absolutely wild. And Messi, he cried. Afterward, he literally said, I let my teammates down because of the penalty I missed and the way I took it.
It's just a really powerful image because, we usually view these elite athletes as, like, machines.
Right, like they don't feel it.
Exactly. We assume they're completely impervious to the kind of stress that would just paralyze the rest of us. But that raw emotion shows just how heavy the burden of expectation really is, even for an absolute legend.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where the story shifts from just, a heartbreaking sports anecdote to something much more relevant to your own life.
Yeah, the everyday applications here are huge.
Right, because you see a moment like that and you immediately think, wow, an incredibly rare miss by the absolute joke. But if you actually look at the data, Lionel Messi is, he's just okay at penalty kicks.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. Outside of shootouts, his conversion rate is just over 75%, which statistically is basically average for all professional players.
Which is completely middle of the pack.
Exactly. Oh, and here is another wild fact. Messi has actually missed more World Cup penalties than any player in history.
Wow. Any player ever.
Ever. Now, part of that obviously speaks to his insane longevity. He's played in 6 World Cups, so he's taken a lot of them. But it still completely shatters this illusion of invulnerability.
It really forces us to ask a fundamental question, right? Like, why is the greatest player of all time essentially just average at this one highly specific, seemingly straightforward task?
Right. Like, why does he struggle there?
He can dribble past 5 defenders in open play like it's absolutely nothing. But you put the ball on a painted white spot for a penalty kick, and its success rate just drops to the mean.
Because the physical skill is a constant, right? But the psychological environment is just in total chaos.
Exactly. The penalty kick is actually the perfect laboratory for studying human pressure. You have a fixed distance, a fixed objective, and, a stadium full of screaming fans.
It totally isolates the psychological variables.
It beautifully isolates them, which means we can extract the actual mechanics of what makes world-class athletes crumble.
And, more importantly, figure out how you listening right now can apply these exact same lessons to the everyday high-stakes challenges in your own life.
Because the mechanics of a penalty kick are surprisingly similar to, say, the mechanics of a massive business pitch.
Or a critical career decision. This brings us to a, frankly, staggering piece of research by a psychologist named Jourdain.
Yeah, Jourdain is fascinating. He decided to really decode the empirical data of who actually thrives under pressure.
And he didn't just do a small sample size either.
No, not at all. He dedicated 5 whole years of his life to analyzing literally every penalty shootout in major men's international soccer tournaments over the last 50 years.
50 years of data. That is a mountain of information.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But he didn't just crunch the numbers from a distance. He conducted in-depth interviews with 25 of the players involved in these specific moments.
Oh, wow. So actual first-hand accounts.
Right. And then he ran physical practice sessions with 15 different teams to validate what he was finding. He wanted to understand at a molecular level how both external pressure from the crowd and internal pressure from the player's own mind affect their physical performance.
I love that kind of dedication to the underlying mechanisms. So to set a baseline here, there are some very intuitive findings that Jordat's data confirmed right out of the gate, right?
Yeah, some stuff you'd totally expect.
Right. Like, for instance, the data shows that players miss more shots when their turn falls later in the shootout.
Sure. The tension builds, the stakes get higher with every single kick.
Makes sense. Also, physical fatigue is a massive factor.
Yeah.
Players who play the entire game before the shootout are far more likely to miss than a substitute who just came on with fresh legs.
Because your legs are heavy, your brain is tired, your execution just suffers.
Yeah. But if the research stopped there, it wouldn't be particularly groundbreaking.
Not at all. It's when Jordat started looking at the demographics and the personal histories of the players stepping up to the spot that the data took a really hard left turn.
Especially regarding experience, which, wait, that doesn't track for me.
How so?
Well, if I'm building a team to win a championship, I want the 30-year-old veteran who has won it all taking that shot. They should have ice in their veins compared to a rookie who has never been on the world stage, right?
What's fascinating here is that the data says the exact opposite.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Jordat found that younger players, specifically those 23 years old and under, actually score significantly more frequently than the older veterans.
So ignorance is basically a higher conversion rate.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It really comes down to youthful naivete. When you are 20 years old, you don't necessarily have the broader perspective of how this one single moment might define your entire career legacy.
You haven't accumulated a decade of heartbreaks and media scrutiny.
Exactly. Or near misses. You are just playing the game you love. So that lack of historical perspective actually acts as a psychological shield against the weight of the moment. You aren't calculating the macro implications of a miss.
Which means your brain can just focus on the physical mechanics of kicking the ball.
Right.
But age and experience only tell half the story here. Jordat's data revealed that a player's individual prestige might actually be their biggest liability.
This is perhaps the most staggering finding of the whole study. Jordat looked at players before and after they received a massive, prestigious individual award.
Like the Ballon d'Or, right? The highest individual honor in the sport.
Exactly. Before winning an award of that magnitude, these players scored 89% of their penalty kicks.
Which is an incredibly high elite success rate.
Right. But after they receive the award,
Yeah.
their success rate plummets to 65%.
That is a massive statistical drop. I mean, 89% down to 65% just because somebody handed them a trophy.
Well, we have to be fair to the variables, of course.
Yeah.
You could argue that by the time they win the award, they're older, or they're star players who rarely come off the bench, meaning they're carrying more physical fatigue.
Sure, that makes sense physically.
But the psychological analysis points very strongly to a different culprit entirely. The crushing weight of new expectations, the status trap.
So winning the award actually rewires how they perceive the kick itself.
Precisely. Once you are officially crowned the best, your internal narrative fundamentally shifts. You are no longer the hungry challenger trying to prove yourself.
Right, you are the king.
You're the king, and you are expected to be absolutely flawless. The pressure isn't just to score a goal for your team anymore. It's to validate your status as the greatest in the world to millions of watching fans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that added layer of expectation takes an already high-stress situation and makes it completely toxic to physical execution. The player starts overthinking mechanics that used to be totally automatic.
Because the fear of damaging their hard-won legacy overrides their muscle memory.
Exactly.
That completely recontextualizes the messy situation we started with. He has all the status, all the awards, all the legacy to protect. Every single time he steps up, he's basically kicking to defend his title as the joke.
It's an unimaginable amount of pressure.
But Jordat's data doesn't just look at who the player is. It also looks at what happens if they miss. Because it turns out that human psychology is incredibly malleable based on the immediate situation.
We can see this super clearly in the game state statistics. Let's define two very different penalty kick scenarios.
Okay.
Scenario A is the instant lose. Imagine your team is down 5-4 in the shootout. If you miss this kick, it is instantly over. Your team loses, you are eliminated, the fans go home in tears.
The ultimate do-or-die situation.
Right. And in that specific situation, the success rate is a dismal 62%.
Which is, I mean, barely better than a coin flip.
Yeah. Now, let's look at scenario B, the instant win. Imagine the shootout is tied 4-4, but the other team just missed their shot. If you score this kick, your team instantly wins the match.
Okay, so a chance for glory.
Exactly. In that scenario, the success rate skyrockets to 92%.
A 30-point swing for doing the exact same physical motion. An uncontested shot against a single goalie.
It is entirely psychological. The reason for that 30-point swing is rooted in how human beings process consequence.
Right, how we weigh the outcome.
Yeah. Missing an instant win kick isn't actually catastrophic. If you miss, you don't lose the game. You just stay tied at 4-4, and the shootout continues.
So you failed to win, but you didn't cause the loss.
Exactly. The safety net is still there. But missing an instant lose kick, that is maximum undeniable stress. Judeth's study found that the primary emotion dominating players in shootouts is actually anxiety, not excitement. And the sheer amount of pressure a player feels is the single most reliable predictor of whether they will succeed or fail. Playing to win feels completely neurochemically different than playing not to lose.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I want to connect this directly to you, the listener.
Yeah, let's bring it back to the real world.
Because unless you are secretly a professional soccer player tuning in, you probably aren't taking penalty kicks on the weekend. But you are absolutely facing these exact same psychological scenarios.
Oh, all the time.
Let's say you are pitching a startup to a room full of venture capitalists. If you have enough runway in your bank account to survive for 6 more months, you are basically taking an instant win penalty kick.
Because the safety net is there.
Exactly. If you nail the pitch, you get the funding and you win. If you miss, you just go back to the office and try again tomorrow. Your anxiety is manageable because of that runway.
Which completely rewires the cognitive load you're carrying into that room.
Right. But if you need that investor today, or your business literally closes its doors tomorrow, you are taking an instant lose kick.
You are pitching not to lose your livelihood.
Yes. And just like those elite soccer players dropping to a 62% success rate, your performance in that pitch meeting is highly likely to suffer because the sheer terror of the consequence is just strangling your ability to execute.
You'll talk too fast, you'll sweat, you'll completely lose your train of thought.
Exactly.
That startup scenario is actually the perfect bridge to the cognitive science here. The physical and mental fatigue we discussed in soccer applies directly to high-stakes professional decisions.
How so?
Well, the journal Cognition published research on how decision fatigue ruins outcomes in professional settings.
Yeah.
Every choice you make throughout the day depletes your executive function.
And that's the part of your brain responsible for complex problem solving and emotional regulation, right?
Exactly. The data shows you are significantly more likely to think a situation through clearly and make a good, thoughtful decision in the morning before that executive function is just drained.
That makes total sense.
Yeah. A late afternoon pitch meeting, when you have been putting out fires all day, is the equivalent of taking a penalty kick after playing 120 minutes of grueling soccer. Your cognitive muscles are basically cramping.
You just don't have the mental reserves left to manage the anxiety of the moment.
And that status trap we talked about with the Ballon d'Or winners, that applies in the boardroom too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, whether your status in your company is perceived or actual, the threat of losing that status invites cognitive traps like confirmation bias and recall bias.
So how does that actually work in practice?
Well, when you are terrified of looking foolish or losing your high status during a pitch, recall bias just hijacks your memory. Your brain essentially goes into a threat detection overdrive.
Meaning it's looking for danger.
Right. Meaning it suddenly only retrieves memories of past pitches that failed, which artificially inflates your current sense of danger.
Wow, because your brain is prioritizing threats to keep you safe, but in doing so, it's literally blinding you to your own past successes.
Exactly. And simultaneously, confirmation bias kicks in. Because you are anxious that the pitch is going poorly, you fixate on the one venture capitalist in the room who is checking their watch.
And you ignore the 4 others who are nodding along.
Yes, because your brain is actively seeking out data that confirms your underlying fear. Your judgment entirely warps.
That's terrifying.
It is. You start making decisions based on protecting your reputation and escaping the uncomfortable situation, rather than evaluating the objective facts of the deal right in front of you.
So we know the traps. We know that maintaining high status can ruin us. We know that playing not to lose creates a toxic level of anxiety. And we know that cognitive fatigue destroys our judgment.
The variables are definitely stacked against us.
So the big question is, what do we do about it? How do we hack our own psychology to take back control when the stakes are terrifyingly high and the variables are against us?
Jorday's research actually gives us actionable steps here. Step 1 is surprisingly simple to understand, but incredibly hard to execute in the moment.
Okay, what is it?
You have to slow down. Remember that 62% success rate in instant lose situations.
Yeah, the coin flip odds.
Jourdain noticed a distinct behavioral pattern there. When players were facing an instant lose kick, their anxiety was so uncomfortable, so physically painful, that they hurried through their routine just to get it over with.
They just wanted to end the psychological pain of the moment.
Exactly. And by rushing their mechanics, they missed. So the very first hack is you have to force yourself to take a breath and take a beat.
You have to literally sit in the discomfort rather than trying to escape it.
Yes. And while you are taking that beat, you have to fundamentally shift your perception of control.
What do you mean by perception of control?
Well, Jourdain found that the more a player believed the outcome of the penalty came down to chance, like flipping a coin or hoping the goalie simply dove the wrong way, the more likely they were to experience destructive anxiety.
So leaving it up to fate is a bad idea.
A terrible idea. You have to actively banish the idea of chance. You must consciously decide that your hard work, your specific effort, and your meticulous preparation are what will dictate the outcome.
I see. You are shifting your internal narrative from being a passive victim of circumstance to the active driver of the result.
Which brings us directly to the next critical psychological tool here, the theory of compensatory control.
Okay, tell me about that.
This is the mechanism for actually creating that feeling of active control when everything around you feels totally chaotic. The theory states that when you are in a situation where you feel deeply anxious because you cannot control the primary outcome.
Like whether the VC actually signs the check.
Exactly. Your brain desperately seeks to compensate. You lower your overall anxiety by seeking absolute, meticulous control over some other minor, totally unrelated aspect of your environment.
Okay, this actually brings us to Harry Kane.
Yes. Perfect example.
He is an English striker and an absolute legend at the penalty spot. He holds the World Cup record with 6 penalty kick goals, and overall he has a nearly 90% strike rate.
That is incredibly elite.
Right. And if you watch him, his use of compensatory control is practically obsessive. I mean, he doesn't just walk up and kick the ball.
Yeah.
He has a rigid, highly specific physical ritual.
A very structured routine.
Yeah. He meticulously places the ball on the grass. He stops and cleans the soles of his shoes. He adjusts his socks. He straightens his shirt. And then he takes the exact same number of steps backward every single time.
It's a highly choreographed routine. And it looks like mere superstition to the casual viewer.
Like a kick or something.
Right. But psychologically, he is actively ordering his surroundings. Doing the exact same things in the exact same order every time forces his brain to calm down and focus.
It gives him a sense of agency.
Yes, it provides a microdose of control. Neurochemically, this repetitive action lowers his physiological arousal. His heart rate drops, his breathing steadies.
Which drastically lowers his stress and anxiety before the whistle even blows.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us? Like, how do we use Harry Kane's sock adjusting technique in our own daily grind?
It's easier than you'd think.
Think about your workday. If you have a high-stakes Zoom call where you are asking your boss for a major promotion, you are effectively taking a penalty kick.
Absolutely.
Maybe your version of Kane's ritual is meticulously organizing the materials on your desk before you log on. You place your notepad exactly parallel to the edge of the desk. You line up your pens by color.
You adjust your ring light so it hits you perfectly.
Right. You take exactly 3 deep breaths. You are literally building a fortress of control right before you step into an unknown outcome.
And we see this everywhere among high performers, in all fields. The source material highlights Richard Branson, for instance.
Oh, what does he do?
He is famously religious about exercising before he starts every single workday. Now, yes, it's obviously good for his cardiovascular health, but he specifically notes that it puts him in a great mind frame to get down to business.
So the intense physical exertion is basically a ritual of control.
Exactly. It prepares his executive function for the absolute chaos of running a global empire.
Or look at Duff McKagan, the bass player for Guns N' Roses. I mean, you want to talk about pressure. Try stepping out onto a stage in front of 80,000 screaming rock fans who expect their minds to be blown.
That's a different kind of shootout entirely.
Right. His ritual is completely internal. It's a mantra. Before every single show, he tells himself, the audience is on your side. People want to see you do well. They want you to kick ass.
He is literally reframing the external pressure.
He's taking the crowd, which could be perceived as a massive threat, and mentally turning them into a support system.
And there is hard science backing up why these rituals, even the seemingly silly ones, are so incredibly effective.
What does the science say?
A fascinating study published in Psychological Science tackled this exact phenomenon. We usually view superstitions as totally irrational, wearing lucky socks, tapping the doorframe 3 times before a meeting, whatever it is.
Stuff that makes no logical sense.
Right. But the researchers hypothesized, and empirically found, that these rituals provide massive performance benefits because they heighten what psychologists call self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy, meaning your underlying belief in your own ability to execute a task successfully.
Right. Essentially, science confirms that if you truly believe a ritual helps you perform better, it objectively does help you perform better.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, by leaning on the ritual, you are redirecting your cognitive focus away from the threat of failure and toward a familiar, safe action.
The placebo effect applies perfectly to performance anxiety.
It absolutely does. It gets you out of your own head and stops you from overthinking the mechanics of what you're about to do. Now, obviously, a ritual won't magically guarantee success.
Harry Kane still misses sometimes.
Exactly. But embracing a routine that makes you feel confident and at ease makes you statistically much more likely to perform at your absolute best by shielding your executive function from panic.
So to pull all these threads together, you simply cannot eliminate the anxiety of a high-stakes moment.
It's impossible.
Whether you are Lionel Messi stepping up to the spot in front of millions, or a middle manager asking for a raise on a Tuesday afternoon, the pressure is real, and your physiological response to it is entirely valid.
You can manage it.
Yes, you can manage it. You manage it by recognizing the traps. Be highly aware if your own status or your past successes are creating toxic expectations in your head.
Understand the exact context of the moment, too.
Right. Are you playing to win, or are you secretly paralyzed by the fear of losing? Force yourself to physically slow down when every instinct in your body screams at you to rush to the finish line.
Take that beat.
And finally, utilize the power of compensatory control. Build your ritual. Line up your pens, say your mantra, and take back the steering wheel.
Building on that, though, it raises a really fascinating, almost slightly unsettling question for you to ponder long after we finish discussing this data.
Unsettling how?
Well, we just established that the entire psychological benefit of a ritual relies on heightened self-efficacy. It relies entirely on the feeling of control it temporarily gives you.
A manufactured sense of safety.
Exactly. So what happens if your meticulous ritual is forcibly disrupted right before your moment of truth?
Oh, like a sudden change of plans.
Right. What if you are walking into that massive pitch and someone accidentally knocks over your perfectly aligned notepad?
Yeah.
Or the Zoom software forces an unexpected update and completely ruins your lighting setup?
Just totally shatters the control.
Yeah. Does the sudden, violent stripping away of that compensatory control make the resulting panic even worse than if you had never relied on a ritual in the first place?
Does the safety net become a trap?
Exactly. Does it break you?
Oh, wow. That is a terrifying thought. You become so reliant on the microdose of control that losing it completely breaks your brain before you even start.
It is absolutely something to think about the next time you find yourself blindly relying on a pregame routine to get you through a tough moment.
It really is. And it brings us right back to that image of Messi on the pitch. It reminds us that no matter how much we study the data, no matter how flawless the physical engineering and training of the human body might be, the human mind remains this wild, unpredictable landscape.
So true.
You can have all the talent in the world, you can practice 1,000 times, but if you can't master the psychological weight of the moment, you are just flipping a coin.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.